Welcome to Wellness Quarters, where wellness lives. My name is Gayle Nowak. I'm your host, Wellness for All expert leader, and communication and emotional wellness coach. The Wellness Universe is thrilled to bring you this inspiring interview series with our members as part of the Wellness for All program. We bring experiences like this to you because we believe happy, healthy, and healed humans lead to peace globally. So join us here on the second Tuesday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern and the fourth Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern for this 15-minute session filled with insightful interviews and practical wellness tips from top professionals in the wellness universe. Whether you're seeking inspiration or actionable advice to enhance your well-being, Wellness Quarters is your go-to destination for support on your journey to a healthier, happier life. This pay what you can donation-based program is supported by generous viewers like you. And if you'd like to donate, you can do that now. You can do that after we're done. You can do that anytime in the future. And I want to give a special thanks to everyone who's already donated. I'm going to pop a link into the chat right now where you can donate. And also at the end of the show, you'll see a pop-up to leave a rating and review. We're so grateful for yours because it helps Wellness Quarters reach more people seeking tools and practices to optimize your well-being. So today I'm really excited that we're going to be speaking with Marisa Ferrera about Triggers Are Your Teachers. Marisa is the #1 best-selling author of Magnify Your Magnificence, your pathway to life and relationships you truly desire. In a world that struggles with discord, Marisa helps heart-centered women face conflict in ways that lead to greater peace and deeper connections, especially with family members. She's passionate about helping her clients uncover the truth of who they really are, diving deep to find their authentic voice and their light so they can stand in their divine feminine power and create healthy, loving boundaries while being true to who they are. Welcome, Marisa.
Hello, hello. It's so great to be here.
Hello. Yeah, it's so great to have you. And I love what you're all about. And I hear some similarities in what we're working on in the world. And I just really appreciate that you're helping your clients really kind of, gain that peace. And we were talking before the show about this concept of how triggers can be seen as teachers and how we sometimes have this way of trying to avoid those triggers. So for those who are tuning in, who are listening, what are some, first of all, can you explain how triggers can be teachers, and then share some practical ways that we can use them for personal growth and empowerment?
Absolutely. And like you were saying, it's so true that most people that I know and meet and have experienced relationships with tend to avoid conflict, which is caused by triggers, right? So instead of looking at it as an opportunity for growth, we tend to run away from them and hide from them. And so we bury things, and that can create some real challenges in a relationship, because when we don't talk about things that are upsetting us or disappointing us, or where we feel hurt, and we push it all down, eventually it starts to come to the surface, and then we have bigger issues to deal with. And so that's why I like to look at triggers as teachers, because it's an opportunity for us to take a closer look at what's really going on. Because most of the time, if not all the time, what appears to be the problem isn't really the problem. It's just showing up in a certain way. But when we look at it as an opportunity to teach us something, then we can go deeper and find out what's really at the core, and then deal with that so that we can find healthier ways to communicate and deal with the conflict so it doesn't keep repeating itself. Because that's another thing you've probably experienced as well, right? Conflicts tend to repeat and become cyclical. And it's the same thing that happens over and over again. It might look a little bit different in the situation, but the underlying cause is often the same. So when we look at it as a teacher, what is that underlying cause? Then we're able to deal with it and move forward.
Yeah, yeah. I thank you for sharing that. And you're right. It sometimes, if we're not really addressing things in the moment, it does start to create a pattern. And it sounds like that might be something to um, also look at triggers as an opportunity to heal that pattern as well,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
That's the whole point. That's the whole point, because it's the wounds that we have within us that are activated when we get triggered. That's what a trigger actually is. It's triggering an unhealed wound that we've buried that's come now to the surface. So that's where the opportunity lies, like you said, to be able to look at it more closely and heal from it. And then that's when we really know we've healed from something. So because if something's consistently upsetting us, the same type of a situation, we're always getting upset about it, or we're always feeling hurt by it or disappointed. Once that's not happening anymore, that's when you know you've healed it. When a similar
Yeah,
situation presents itself and now it doesn't bother you because you've actually dealt with the core issue. Yeah. Yeah.
right, right. So my sense of this is, why not? Why not go in and heal it? And my guess would be that people don't really know how to do that. So do you have a
Mhm.
tool or a technique that you would recommend for someone who wants to start working with their triggers and integrate
Yeah.
them in a more positive and empowering practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a simple three-step process that can help people take a closer look at a recurring, painful past experience. It doesn't mean that it's a one-off, like you do it once and all of a sudden, it's healed. Sometimes it's kind of like the layers of an onion. We heal in layers as well. So you could heal the outer layer, and then the same thing may trigger you again, but maybe not as intensely. And so little by little, you can heal. But the first thing, before I even share those three steps, that's really important for people to understand, and it's oftentimes a hard pill to swallow, and that is, before we can really do any healing work, or even for any of this to have any positive impact, we have to be willing to take 100% responsibility for our own feelings and let go of blame. And that's a really tough one for people, because we often want or feel that we need to blame either a person or an external circumstance for whatever it is that's upsetting us or making us angry or disappointed. And yet, when we blame and put the focus on something outside of us, it's very disempowering, because we have no control over that. We have no control over the actions of others or the words of others or anything that might happen to you. So when we're willing to take 100% responsibility, it does not mean we're to blame. And that's where people fall into that trap sometimes. They think, well, if I don't blame somebody else, then I guess I'm at fault. And I just say, why don't we
Mm,
just forget about the blame game altogether? Nobody has to be blamed for anything. It's just a situation that's presented itself as an opportunity, a trigger to teach us something. So that's the number one thing. Once we're willing to take that responsibility, then we can engage in these next steps. And the first one is simply to observe your thoughts about what's going on. So something's happened. Now you're feeling upset. You might be angry, disappointed, maybe even feelings of resentment might come up. So if you can notice and observe the feelings that you have and the thoughts around them, it's the thoughts around the feelings that are really going to give you a lot of information about what's really at the core, because the thoughts are what we make the situation or the feelings that we have. It's what we make it mean. We add meaning to all of our experiences. That isn't often the truth, but it's what we believe is true. So, for example, many times in the past, because of my past, physical and mental abuse as a child, I would often, when I got triggered by something somebody said or did or didn't say or didn't do that I expected them to, my automatic thought would be, "You think I'm stupid," would be one of them, right?
mm,
Or nobody loves me, like I'm not very lovable, right? Or I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough. I started to notice when I got triggered, those were underlying thoughts that I had about what just happened. And that's what I made it mean, but that was because of my past. And so that's where the teaching opportunity was, because now it's like, wow, this person in front of me isn't telling me I'm stupid or I'm not lovable or I'm not smart enough. I've made up that meaning. because of my past experience. So now I have the power to do something about it. So once I've observed those thoughts and feelings and I understand the meaning I attached to the experience, I can move to step 2, which is to reframe the experience by changing the story that I created around it. Because we make up stories about everything, right? And like I said, most of the time they're not even true, especially when we're dealing with, childhood stuff, because we have all kinds of filters from the past and experiences. We don't really remember what really happened. We think we do because we still feel the pain of it, right? So we think we know what happened. And so when we can reframe it and look for the blessing in the experience, or what did the experience teach us? There's always a silver lining, no matter how painful a past memory is or a past experience is. And so when you can break it down, you can change and make a new meaning to the situation and write a new and more empowering story by looking at that situation. And so once you're able to create a new story that's more empowering, you're going to feel better. And the third step, which is a really tough one for a lot of people, is to forgive. To forgive the person from the past who hurt you or disappointed you or treated you in really harsh, unloving ways. And again, people think when you forgive, that means you're condoning the behavior. And that is not the truth. Forgiveness means you have a better understanding, perhaps, of what might have been going on for the other person. It gives us the opportunity to have empathy and compassion for the person that actually treated us badly or hurt us or disappointed us. It doesn't mean what they did or said was okay. It just means maybe, again, with the new story we've created, we can have a deeper understanding of maybe they were acting and reacting from their own childhood wounds that were never healed. It never had anything to do with us in the first place. And so we can free ourselves from carrying that pain over and over again, because a lot of people don't realize that when we don't forgive, because I've heard people say, I will never forgive my mother for what she did, or I will never forgive fill in the blank for what they did. And the challenge with that, or the difficulty, is that now you are literally carrying that painful experience with you every moment of every day, whether you're thinking about it or not. It is those feelings are being projected onto the people around you, causing conflict and difficult relationships with everybody. So when you're able to forgive and move through those steps that I've talked about, you're able to free yourself. It doesn't mean you have to stay in relationship and communication with somebody if they're continuing to treat you in unloving ways. That's where healthy boundaries comes in, right? So forgiving doesn't mean, let people walk all over me. No, it means you just choose to forgive them because they didn't know any better, and even when we think they did, they really didn't, because I truly believe that people are always doing the best they can with their own level of self-awareness, with the tools that they have, their own understanding. And when we really realize that, we're able to free ourselves and decide whether or not we want to continue to be in relationship with this person, if we're able to recreate a healthy one, right? That's the key. So again, taking responsibility is key before you can do anything. And then observing the feelings and the thoughts you have, the stories you've made up around your experience, and then reframing it, create a new empowering story, see what you've learned from it, how you've developed possibly some skills and abilities, and maybe even the ability to have compassion. I think for myself, for example, I mentioned, I like many people, lived in a very abusive home. And so I had a lot of issues with my father, who was the main abuser. And it took me a long time before I understood or even knew about this process to be able to move through that. And I was able to, part of the reframing and the new story, what helped me was to get a picture of my father when he was a little boy. And I would look at that picture instead of thinking of him as a mean, big person that he was, or that I felt that he was. And I was able to see him as an innocent child who also was abused as a child and never had the opportunities I had to get the help that I needed to heal from it and to move forward. And so when I was able to create a new story around that, my heart just opened for him. And I was able to move into that forgiveness so much easier. And of course, the abuse didn't continue later, I was able to stand in my power as an adult and create a new relationship with him. And I'm so grateful, that I was able to do that. But in some situations, it's not possible because the person might continue to be abusive or hurtful. And so that's where, you might need to work with somebody to make sure you're keeping yourself safe and having those healthy boundaries. But I know that even, really what we might call horrible relationships can change if the people really want them to be better. They can be better.
Yeah. Change is always possible. Even if it's one person in that relationship changing, doing this process in particular.
Yes.
And I love, number one, thank you for sharing your story. And I really appreciate you making the distinctions about forgiveness, because I've struggled with it personally. I've worked with clients who really struggle with that concept. And I love your tip about using the photo of your dad as a child, right? And to help you shift that perspective and see a different dimension, different dimension of this person that we may have maybe a kind of a one-dimensional or two-dimensional relationship with. Something as simple as thinking of them in a different way, not necessarily, like you said, condoning the behavior and still having firm boundaries, but recognizing this is a human too, and they make mistakes too. And maybe all of this is happening for us. And what can we do now? So thank you for sharing that process and making that distinction and sharing your personal experiences too. Do you have any last words before we wrap up today?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think the most important thing for us to really remember is that all of us are always doing the best we can in every moment. And it doesn't always look like that, because I hear people say, oh, they could do better than that. They're not really trying that hard. But the truth is, none of us want to be experiencing pain. I mean, I'm dealing with people right now where there's so much misunderstanding going on with family members, and they're saying the same thing when I'm talking to them separately. Okay. They're saying the same thing and they're not hearing each other yet. We're working on helping them to understand that they're both hurting. They both want the same thing, and yet they're attacking each other. Right. And we attack when we feel vulnerable and when we feel like we're under attack, but then it never ends. Like if we don't learn how to heal from the woundedness so that we can speak from our hearts, we just continue to hurt one another. And so to just really do your best to accept that people are doing their best. And if it doesn't look like it, we just don't understand what's really going on at their core level, where their pain and woundedness is, because we have a hard enough time figuring ourselves out, right? And dealing with our own wounds. So, I mean, it's hard. And so sometimes we think we know, that the other person could do better. But here's another thing. Think about your own self. When we get upset or angry, we project onto the people we love too. Have we never said a hurtful word to someone we love dearly? I mean, I have, even with the tools I have. I still fall into that trap sometimes. It's just I'm much faster at taking responsibility and apologizing. And again, looking at my part and what's really going on, right? So we all do it. We all hurt each other. I would have done better if I could. But in that moment, when we are in that triggered state and not aware of what we're doing, we're not really operating from choice in that moment until the awareness is there. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. It does make sense. It
Yeah.
absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those who want to learn more or connect with you after the episode, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, I'll share my link to the Wellness Universe, because I'm a member of the Wellness Universe. And I also have a link where you can, it gives my Facebook, all the different social media that I'm on my website, everything. So people can choose whatever way they want to connect, whatever works for them. So yeah, I'm happy to support anybody that I can on this journey, because it's really worth walking that journey of healing, because I'm telling you, I never would have dreamed my life would be the way it is today, based on my past.
Yeah. Well, we so appreciate you sharing your time and your wisdom and your energy with us today. And I want to thank everyone who's joining us live, everyone who's watching the replay. We'd love to see you for our next show on Wednesday, September 25th at 3 p.m. with David McLeod for our conversation on uncovering what you truly seek. Until then, be well, everyone.